So you're actually, but you're there every day.
Good evening. The hour of 6 p.m. having arrived, I will call to order this regular meeting of the Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keens YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets as you enter the meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and comment on the agenda items under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes has had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. I will now call to order this regular meeting of the Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee and declare a quorum present. Councillor Williams has requested to be allowed to participate remotely this evening. Councillor Williams, please state your reason for that request.
Hi, this is Bobby Williams. I'm on a family vacation on Star Island.
Great.
No one is in the room with me.
Thank you. Unless I hear any objections, that request is going to be granted this evening. So you have already stated your location and who's in the room with you, so thank you for doing that, Counselor. We are going to jump right into our meeting this evening, and our first item on the agenda is Jim Copa and Jimmy Tempesta's request to discharge fireworks for the First Responder Appreciation Community Day on August 18th, 2024. I believe we have Jim and Jimmy here to speak to us this evening about the request. Come on up. I don't know if we have a second chair or if you both want to join us.
We're good. We're good.
Is this okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for helping out. So please state your names and addresses for the minute taker and then talk to us a little bit about your request.
My name is Jim Copel, 7 Westminster Drive, Fitzwilliam, New Hampshire, 03447.
James Tempesta, Swansea, 11 Eastview.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. And I see that you have an event that you're looking to host. It sounds like this is something that maybe was born out of an event at the restaurant and has moved to a bigger scale, and you're looking to host it at the Alumni Field this year. Does that sound correct?
Well, it started with the blue, now we got the red involved, so
Okay.
the red got a little upset that we weren't involved with them, so we incorporated both, and it's larger than my restaurant now, so we're gonna give this a try, but
So-
it's been successful.
So we started the event in January of '22 with just a Blue Line appreciation, where it was a private event for law enforcement personnel and their families, staff people, dispatchers, administrators, and Mayor Hansel was there, governor sent stuff in, senators sent stuff in, and we had dignitaries come in and they speak and appreciate and show appreciation to the law enforcement community. So we did that in January of '23, and we did it in March of '24. Mayor Khan spoke at that event. Mayor Hansel spoke at that event. Business owners in the community spoke, and all the dignitaries, the sheriff, county attorney, they've all spoken. So it's been a full house there. And as Jimmy said, that the fire department personnel said, hey, you guys are hosting this Blue Line thing, why don't you host a Red Line thing? So we know the difference between police and fire, and so we developed a First Responder Appreciation Community Day, opened it up to all the police departments, fire departments. We have organizational meetings down at the restaurant once every 6-8 weeks. And right now, there's softball games planned, there's other stuff, and there's 80 police fire guys that'll do battle on the softball. Well, it's going to be at alumni, but it'll be a softball game, and we got events inside that and touch a truck and all that. So one of the police officers is related to somebody at Atlas, and he's married the owner's daughter. So they said, hey, listen, we shoot at alumni anyway for the Swamp Bats, so we want to do a special music-themed show, colored for police and fire, as to cap off the night for all the first responders. This gives the community an opportunity to see police officers in their own element in a different light, and it also gives the police officers an opportunity and their families to see that they're supported and they're appreciated. And Jimmy and I do this without taking any money from any of them. We just do it, and we take care of all the expenses. This year, the committee, our little group of department reps from every police department in the county, Keene, Sheriff's Department, State Police, and every town in the county have reps that come to the thing. We feed them, and we let them put their input in. They wanted to charge $5 to come into this event because of the fireworks and everything. And Jimmy and I put up a little stink about that, and we said no. And they said, no, we need to charge something. And so what they did was they said, we're going to charge $5 to come in, under 12 free. And we've reached out to Child Advocacy Center. I've been assured by the head people in Manchester and Bedford that the Child Advocacy Center is going to be part of this, that all the money that's raised there will go to the Child Advocacy Center and stay in the Monadnock region. So Bobby Collinsworth and Child Advocacy Center will be there, and we got dignitaries coming. So it'll be a fun day, and we just thought this would be a great way to end the event, to let the police and fire guys know that they're appreciated and supported.
Wonderful. Well, before we get to the point of talking about the fireworks at the end of the event, I just want to say thank you both for your efforts in organizing and for the respect that this shows to our firemen and our policemen. I think that these are very tough jobs, and these have been very trying years, and having community members stepping up and doing this on behalf of those individuals is really important and lovely to see, and I appreciate all of the effort, and I know what it takes to plan an event like this, and I know what you guys have put in to make this happen. So kudos to both of you.
Thank
for
you
that.
very much.
Thank you. We appreciate the kind words, but not one police officer that goes to our event on January 22nd or March 24th this year left that building without getting a handshake. Thank you very much. And boom, their family saw it. So it means the world to us. My kid's a Keene cop, and I know what it's like to be out on these streets, period.
Yes, and I 100% can appreciate that. I think that the police force in Keene deals with some big city things that you might not even think are happening behind the scenes, and we're really lucky to have them.
But I think we're getting the community really into it. I think we started something new. I think this might travel into other places, and that's what we're hoping to do. You know, we're probably the first ones to do something like this, and I'm very excited about how it grew fast, and everybody's showing up. I mean, I filled my restaurant over 500 people like nothing.
Yeah.
It was a lot of support. It was wonderful.
That's incredible.
But thanks for all your support too, and what you guys do.
So I'm going to start with the committee, or do we have staff that wants to speak to this? Yes, city manager.
So this is a private event. It's not a city-sponsored event, and it's on Alumni Field, which doesn't require city council approval for any sort of event status. The only question before the committee tonight is the discharge of the fireworks at Alumni Field.
Great, thank you for tuning that up a little bit. Do we have any questions from the committee about what is being asked of us tonight? Councilor Jones?
Not a question.
Or,
just a
yes,
comment.
please.
Thank you. And gentlemen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I had the honor of attending the State Troopers Holiday Party at Tempestus this year, and all the troopers had nothing but great things to say about what you do, and I thank you for that. I do ask one favor. I will support this motion, but I do ask one favor of you, is that you get the word out especially, that's my ward, Ward 5, where the fireworks take place. I always get the calls about people's dogs are upset. People have kids on the autism spectrum. There's veterans with PTSD issues. We don't want to hide it from them. We just want them to know ahead of time that this is coming. And that's all I ask of you.
We appreciate that, and we'll go above and beyond to make sure that the community knows there's a lot of publicity planned, and we're going to do the fireworks a little bit earlier, so it won't be late. I know that, and it's going to be a short show, just so you know. It's going to be 8 to 10 minutes. It's not going to be the normal 15-minute show. It's going to be a special lower show. It's going to be, and I think they're going to do a minimum on the bangs. I think it was more music and color themed. It's going to be police and fire colors, and it's going to be a lower show. And it's, like I said, I think when I spoke to the Atlas people, it was going to be 8 to 10 minutes at the most.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Haas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jim and Jimmy, for doing this. I echo all these other echoes around here. I'm just curious, and you don't have to say this, I'm just curious, what do the fireworks cost? If you don't know or prefer not to say, that's fine.
No, that's fine. So Atlas Fireworks, we have a connection in the committee that, the little rep committee thing, and we reached out, and Atlas, it's now a pyrotechnical thing, but it's still owned by the Pelkeys, or they're still running it. They've agreed, because of the purpose and the cause of this, that they're going to cut the fees and the price for us. They haven't told us yet what that is. What I will tell you is they were all in from the first conversation I had with them. It came up through the committee about this, and then they reached out, and then we reached out. My mom worked for Steve Pelkey for 25 years as his administrative assistant, so the conversations were easy to have, and they jumped on board right away. And the people at Atlas were great with us, and so honestly, I don't know what the fee is, but they're
I'll see you some
in.
other time and ask the question.
Well, they're cutting the fees tremendously to make this happen. They
Great.
want to be part of the cause
I
of
hope
this.
they don't hurt us that bad.
I really appreciate that you're going to a diminished show and containing it to something a little more
Yeah.
short and
Also,
low.
we had to make it affordable.
And maybe that's a
We
good
just thought
key
we'd
there.
put a little good
Yeah.
ending to a good day, with something small. And I do understand, there is people that are gonna, but you do fireworks there, I understand, right?
So I think that leads to the problem, to be
Okay.
honest, is that there are very few places in the city that it's safe to discharge fireworks shows at the scale that Atlas can do them at. And so that community bears the brunt of the fireworks shows.
I
So if it were spread over the city, I think that we probably wouldn't hear quite so much from the constituents, but because we tend to locate these big shows there, the neighborhood gets like a weekly event.
Yeah, no,
Which
no,
we're-
and that
we're
was,
trying-
that
we
was,
are trying to limit, but.
How often a year do they do those then?
So individual, it's always individual organizations that are coming to us, and we've worked with Counselor Williams over the last several requests. I think we've approved 3 shows prior to this request at alumni directly, and Counselor Williams had brought up a point this year that we might try to limit that to 1 per organization, because we did have 1 organization ask for
Makes
2
sense.
shows, so that we can spread the love a little bit. We've seen them done at Keene State on their fields, and I don't know if we've seen anything on the east side of Keene that anyone has requested space over there for these events. But they tend to get located in West Keene. The parking and the layout just works, but that neighborhood does bear the brunt of that
You may
noise.
be leading the way to a new way to approach fireworks displays by doing a diminished show that could
Because 8
be
minutes is
just as
pretty
good.
quick. Before they can think about complaining, it's over.
Yeah.
well, I just want to add
Thank
that originally, we had reached out to the people from the rec center prior to Kara's appointment, and we were inquiring about doing it at Wheelock Park. And that was prior to any discussion about any fireworks. And then we couldn't get a date that was suitable for what we were trying to do. So we went down and between Jimmy and Bill Hotwelder and others in Swansea and Ashley, we set up it to do at Brown Field. And we were all good with that because that's a quote-unquote softball field. And that, well, I took a little bit of heat from a few guys on the committee thing, and they said, listen, this is a Keene event. You have the Blue Line Appreciation events at Tempestas, and you have a large contingent of Keene Police, and you're going to have a large contingent of Keene Fire, and we're going to have a large contingent from all over the county. However, there was some discussions, and so we reached out to Keene State. We talked to Keith Boucher and Marty Testo and looked at that option, and they were willing to talk about it, and I think that's when Kara was still the softball coach here. But that's all it was. We just talked about it, and we hadn't pursued it. And then a little bit more, I went out and seen Ken Dooley, and then Ken said, well, I said, well, and then at some point we became, more in tune to all the little things inside the event that we want to do. We got some pretty neat stuff going on.
Yes, I
And,
saw the flyer.
and I got you guys all some flyers so you can see if you like. But then the fireworks really kicked up, and because of them shooting in the past, or the swamp bats, we just figured that was a, no-brainer per se. And then the only thing we didn't like was it was a baseball field and we're playing softball, and so we made some modifications. We talked to Ken Dooley. We made sure the swamp bats were done. We got a good date, and everybody was real excited. And we're getting a lot of. We do a little skit every Sunday, a Sunday morning heat show, and we're getting within 24 hours 5,000 hits a day on it. And somebody said, "Well, how many people are you going to have there?" We could have 200. We could have 500, 1,000. It's all contingent on weather, obviously.
Yes.
Right, so, because the classic cars aren't gonna come, and I know for a fact that the police and the fire that are involved in the games themselves, they're extremely excited. We got corporate businesses in town that we don't solicit. They come to us and say, hey, we wanna be part of this, what do we need to do? So, we aren't gonna take any money from them, right? So we got a home run derby. Keene Fire will go against Keene Police on the home run derby and different things, and we're just, a business might, like Dunkin' Donuts gave guys, they'll give the whole winning team something, and McDonald's will do it, and Warrior Chevrolet will do it, and My Box, so we don't solicit. We just want to thank every single police officer and their family, every first responder, every firefighter, EMT, paramedic. Thanks. This is what the community thinks of you, instead of what they see when they go out on the street here. They pull into somebody's driveway or arrest somebody, or they get a different view. Out there, they're going to see what the community really thinks of them. And that's what's important to us, period.
Yes, and I think your message is getting across, and I think that the committee here fully understands and respects what you guys are trying to accomplish.
We appreciate your support way over the top. We can't thank you enough for what you do for the city and the protections you put in place, but it means a lot to us.
Great.
As you can tell.
It's gonna be another appreciation thing. If you keep it up, we're gonna be doing one for them.
Oh, no, we definitely feel appreciated sitting up here.
Good.
So now I am going to open it up to the public to see if there's anyone from the public here who has any comments. Is there anyone who'd like to speak?
Laura Tobin, is this on?
Yes, it is
Okay,
on. Just state
sorry.
your name and address, please.
Laura Tobin, Center Street. I do really appreciate celebrating the first responders, and I think that's a fantastic thing to be celebrating, and I appreciate what you're doing. I also do have concerns that I have been hearing about concerns with dogs, PTSD around the fireworks. So I have been hearing more of those concerns, and I just want to mention that. So,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, Mayor Khan.
And I've had the privilege, actually, of observing this event coming together. Jim and Jimmy have put an incredible amount of time into this. I'm amazed at the number of organizations they have participating and the number of events that they've crammed into one day. So the coordination on this has been really excellent. I understand the concerns that have been brought to the council. We'll need to deal with that at some point, but not now,
Right.
because of. I think if we have those concerns, we can articulate that. Great in the future. This event, it really is going to be excellent, well organized, and involve a lot of people in the community, recognizing people who save lives and first responders in all forms. I compliment you on the event you're doing, and think this is a good thing for our city and region. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the public looking to, or wishing to speak? All right.
Am I the public? Can I speak one more thing?
You
By
sure
no
could.
means, I want you to all understand, by no means, if this doesn't go through, it's not the end of the world. I do not want this to be known as disrupting anybody. You know, this is supposed to be a positive direction. So if you feel that there's a majority of people that we're gonna disrupt, me and Jimmy are gonna have to do something else. We're here asking if we think the majority of people would appreciate this, but we do have concerns too. We do feel for the animals and stuff like that. So by no means are we here to corrupt anything, make anything a big problem, okay? But
I
if you
think-
feel that it would work, we'd appreciate your support on it.
Yes, and what I can say to that is that I think what you're hearing is the spillover of a greater conversation that needs to happen at the council level, and it is unrelated to your event. I think that the people who are gonna patronize your event will enjoy having this event that's tailored to what your event is about. And I think, you know, like, my children go down to the Swamp Bats games for those displays. It's fun for them, it's exciting. It is a burden on the community. The community does have coping mechanisms for it if we get the word out for these different events that are happening. I think the council just needs to talk about what sort of, what's our capacity for these types of events at that particular location, and that is unrelated to what you guys are doing. I think what you're doing is great, and I think you're gonna see support for it from the council, certainly from me, and I'm hoping that we can kick this off with a motion. Oh, Counselor?
Did you have something to say? No.
Oh.
You got it?
Yep, Counselor Madison.
Go for it.
Before I make the motion, I just want to thank you both for putting this event together, but also including firefighters. I come from a firefighting background. I come from a firefighting family. So I definitely appreciate the inclusion there.
Thank you.
And that being said, I move to recommend that Jim Capo and Jimmy Tempesta for the First Responder Appreciation Community Day be granted permission for the discharge of display fireworks on Sunday, August 18th, 2024, on Alumni Field at no later than 10 p.m. Said permission is subject to the following conditions: the signing of a revocable license and indemnification agreement, that Jim Capo and Jimmy Tempesta for the First Responder Appreciation Community Day provide a certificate of liability insurance with the City of Keene listed as additional insured in the amount of $1 million, that the fireworks vendor also provide a certificate of liability insurance with the City of Keene listed as additional insured in the amount of $1 million, submittal of a signed letter of permission from SAU 29 for the use of their property, and the obtainment of a state fireworks permit. In addition, the petitioner agrees to comply with any recommendations of city staff. The petitioner agrees to absorb the cost of any city-related costs. Said payment shall be made within 30 days of the date of invoicing.
Do we have a second? A motion by Counselor Madison, seconded by Counselor Jones. Any questions on that motion? I know there's a lot in there.
Well, no, that's fine. He was very clear. So the city, the school department already has signed off. The state permit's already in process. The insurance certificate with the Keene is already on file with this SAU office in the city. And all the other requirements that you had said are all in place already. So the insurance, the Ken Dooley signing, everything is all been forwarded to the city of Keene.
Okay, city manager?
There is a required process with the fire department to have the display of fireworks. So there will be a permit required and some additional coverage.
Yep, and we've already spoke to the city fire department, and we were just waiting for today. Again, there's 25 Keene firemen that are gonna play in the game, and they're all well aware of the events, because the fireworks are gonna go immediately after the last pitch is thrown in this game, and we moved up the time so that we weren't running late. We weren't even gonna be close to that 10 o'clock deadline, so everything that Counselor said, including the Keene City Fire Department thing, is all in process and all completed, and there are things that have been filed with the school and the city and the property.
So I appreciate your attention to all those things because you're running short on time. So that's
That's
great
right.
that you've got a lot of
That's
that
right.
underway.
That's
Anyone
right.
from the public have any questions on this motion? All right, seeing none, I would ask for a vote. All in favor?
You gotta do a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have Counselor Williams here tonight, so we are going to be doing roll call votes, starting with Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Haas?
Yes.
It's a yes for me. Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
No.
So we have a 4-1 vote that will carry over to City Council next week, and you guys can look forward to an answer there.
Thank you very, very much, and thanks for serving the city.
Great, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, our agenda item, number 2, is the request for authorization for an issuance of a building permit for 3 Aliber Place and 57 Mauber Street pursuant to RSA 674:41. The Community Development Director should be here in regards to this. And I will also let everyone know that we have our City Attorney Mullins on the phone. If we have any questions regarding this, we can reach out to him to ask. He's going to be available to us. Jesse, are you going to be presenting for us tonight?
Getting your map ready in case I need it. Jesse Rounds, Community Development Director. I'm pretty much here to report out on what occurred on Monday evening at our planning board meeting.
So before
Sure.
we get into that, we haven't really had the overall topic addressed. I don't know if we wanted,
I can absolutely,
can you do that with us too?
beyond, so not related to the specific request, just the over.
So why it's before
Sure.
us today?
Yeah. So the New Hampshire State RSAs require that the city council approve or authorize the issuance of building permits for development on a private road. And so in this case, there is a road that is not a public road, and so is considered a private road by the city, that is proposed, that has a parcel on it that's being proposed for building permits.
Okay, great. And so part of that process is that the council needs to consider a recommendation from the planning board in order to make our final determination about our recommendation to the full council.
That's correct. Yep.
Great. Do you want to bring us up to speed on the
Sure.
planning board?
So, so the planning board was so the applicant presented to the planning board, explained what their proposal was, and the planning board had a lot of questions about what the purpose of the conversation was and what they were being asked to do. And I think what it really came down to was the purpose of RSA 674-41, which is the RSA that requires this action, is really to get at safety. And so the question becomes, is developing on a parcel on said private road, in this case Aliber Place, which is off of Marlborough Street, is it safe? And the planning board debated back and forth, discussed, and determined that they should make a motion recommending that the city council authorize building permits, the issuance of building permits on the property.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions for our community development director while we have him? No. All right, I really appreciate you guys including the minutes from the planning board in our packet. That was helpful, I think, to see what their conversation was. I did want to point out, or ask a quick question. I saw it was addressed at planning. I just want to address it here for the public. This applicant is not requesting a cottage court
not.
overlay because it is not allowed in this district. Is that correct?
That's correct. Cottage court is only permitted in residential zoning districts, and this parcel is in the downtown edge of the
Okay.
district.
All right. Yes.
Thanks, Jesse, for giving an overview. I can hopefully provide a little bit of color to this issue and ultimately what the plan is. So George Hansel on behalf of the owner, Jared Goodell. So this is a really innovative kind of proposal to meet the lack of housing that we have here in Keene. Mr. Goodell wishes to build 3 duplexes on his property. Currently, this part of the parcel that he owns is deteriorating concrete and pavement. And so what he's looking to do is put in 3 small duplexes, add some green space, and create some housing close to downtown Keene. This whole process related to RSA 674-41 came to all of us sort of by surprise. In all my time with the city government, I've never had to deal with this issue. I'm thankful that I think Mary from the planning department sort of figured it out for us. And so she explained what we had to do, and I did a little bit of my own research, and it seems that this RSA is meant to get at really remote parcels, making sure that parcels on Class 6 roads that are inaccessible to ambulances and emergency services at least get a review by the local governing body, in this case, the city council. I don't think it really applies here, frankly. There was some discussion at the planning board about a resolution that the city council passed back in 2000 related to this RSA, and that's resolution 2000-28. I think it's important to note that that resolution strictly dealt with Class 6 roads. I think responding to whatever was the impetus for this RSA in the first place. Importantly, with this application, this is not a Class 6 road. That's a legal definition. This is considered a non-conforming private road. And so it's very different from a legal standpoint. It's also very different in practical application. If you look at it, this is essentially a shared driveway for 3 parcels on Aliber Place and 2 parcels on Aliber Place, one that abuts or is right up against Marlborough Street. So with this plan, the owner is going to voluntarily merge 3 Aliber Place, which is the single-family home to the back of the lot, with 57 Marlborough Street, which is that middle section that has a 3-family unit on it currently. And so what we're asking for is just this approval from the city council to be issued a building permit on a private road without frontage. This is not a substitute for any other level of review from the city of Keene. We still have some work to do with zoning. We still have to apply for the building permits. And Mr. Goodell also plans to submit to the county deeds some documentation aligned with the RSA that says that he's not holding the city liable for any maintenance of this road, anything like that. The bottom line is this seems like a legal technicality. And we want to get through this hurdle as quickly as we can so we can continue to get the approvals we need and start construction on these buildings in September. So happy to answer any questions.
Great, well, and thank you for giving us that outline. I definitely was able to garner everything that you said through reading through the RSA, and we included also our council policy in our packet this evening. What you may not know is that we have been talking about development in this community, and that we have added a more time section to our joint committee's agenda, and private roads are sitting there on more time right now. I think we saw in advance of this conversation that conversation needs to happen in general, in a workshop in front of the community, and that policy that was set back in 2000 might not be as appropriate as we might hope that policies are not going to last for 25 years, especially in the current climate. So I think with this property abutting a neighborhood that would have applied, or where a cottage-core overlay would have applied, I'm certainly comfortable seeing that additional development happen in there, and I'm willing to support this. I'm not sure if the other members of our committee have any questions, but I'm happy to field any of them. Councilor Haas?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hansel. It seems that we've got two separate issues here. One, the reconsideration of this old resolution, and then moving ahead with building permits and reclassifying the zoning for 3 Albiter. The 57 Montgomery Street already is zoned properly, and that could continue to develop the duplexes there. But 3 Albiter is in the residential preservation district, so that would have to be rezoned.
No.
No, and that's a good prompt for me to tell you what we're working on as far as zoning goes, but we're seeking actually 2 variances and a special exception on this project. The variances have to do with building outside of the Build 2 zone that's required in the downtown edge district, which basically says you have to build within this 0 to 20 feet of the road frontage. That's obviously impossible with this project because the parcel lies outside of the build zone, so we can't build where we don't, in an area that's not part of the parcel. And then we're seeking another variance for dimensional requirements, basically the setbacks on the back edge of the property, right here. We want to be able to build in that setback zone so that we can tuck these buildings back sort of out of sight, more or less, so the community is less impacted, but it's also going to provide more privacy for the ultimate residents of these new buildings. So we're going through that process. That's up to the ZBA to decide. And we're also just quickly seeking a special exception for parking. This is a really interesting parcel because having looked at it and in relation to our zoning map, this is where multiple different zones kind of come together in an area that's not on a street. So if you look at our zoning map, a lot of the zones are delineated on streets. So you have sort of residential over here, you have something over there.
But not here.
A bunch of different zones come into this area because it's literally on the edge of downtown.
So that, it seems like there's normal process for that to go through, and I'm not sure of why we would need to make a special acknowledgement of those processes. As you take it through applications for building permits and zoning.
So if
changes.
I can
Counselor,
quickly.
Just a second,
Yep.
I'm happy to field that one. So, under RSA 674-41, it requires our approval for them to have a building permit issued. So regardless of all of the zoning changes, they cannot move forward with the ability to apply for a building permit without our agreement because it's located on a private road only, regardless of any of these underlying zoning questions. And we're not here to discuss any of those tonight or what they're doing on the site. We just have to decide whether or not we are comfortable with the idea of further development on a private road.
Yeah, so we're taking on the old resolution, 2018 or something.
We're not.
Oh.
That is a completely separate matter that we'll discuss at a separate time at a workshop. at the joint committee. We won't even be suspending that as a rule. Oh,
So we can acknowledge to move forward with building permitting and revision of zoning or setbacks or whatever is needed without addressing 2018.
yes. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I can just speak to this really quickly. This RSA 674-41, some would say that this is state zoning, which, you know, you can argue against. I would make a good argument against it. I've actually inquired with members of our legislature to look into this and look about changing it because the city doesn't like it. Developers don't like it. It doesn't give a lot of clarity around what you are to assess as a governing body. So there aren't criteria like if we were submitting a site plan review where you had very specific things that we could prepare to address. That's not the case here. So I share your confusion, and hopefully we can change it at the state level so that you don't have to go through this again.
So I'm still confused, can we
So-
suspend suspend the resolution 2018 and then let you just proceed with?
Well, that
building
resolution
permit?
doesn't actually apply to this application because it doesn't address private roads. It's specifically related to Class 6 roads.
I do believe there was an amendment to it. We have Attorney Mullins here for this reason. He and I had a conversation about this earlier. Also, in the RSA 674-41, it does appear that we can't overarchingly deny your right to come to us to ask on an individual basis for each one of these building permits. So we have some real problems with our 2028 anyway. And it's definitely highlighted the fact that we needed to have this conversation sooner rather than later. Attorney Mullins, are you with us? All right, we might need to call him back. He did message me to say that he might drop the call. And the motion that was prepared for us does have a note for a suspension of that resolution. However, and I have a copy of the resolution here. I did not read that resolution in the way that I thought it would have to be suspended in order to approve this permit. I'd like to get Tom's take on that before we make a decision on what kind of motion we're gonna be looking at.
Hello, I'm back.
Great. Hi, Tom. This is Councilor Bosley. I'm speaking here with former Mayor Hansel about the application for a building permit on Albert Place. And the conversation has moved toward whether or not there's a required suspension of our 2000-28 in order for us to move forward with a recommendation.
Yeah, the answer to that question is it would be best to suspend it only because of the resolution in place, but you can rely on the statute. It's not required. I apologize for my granddaughter.
That's totally fine. So for formality, you would like us to suspend it even though it's not required under the statute?
I think it's the chair's prerogative. We can rely on the statute. I had that conversation with you before we looked at the actual requirements.
Okay, great. I think for safety's sake, we might as well make the suspension so that we don't find ourselves in a sticky situation when we get to full council and not having that motion in place. But before we get to any motions at all, how are we feeling about this conversation? Does anyone have any other questions? Councilor Williams or Jones? Councilor Jones?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, when Jerry Carney was our city attorney many years ago, he always said if you're going to waive a city process, there should be a separate motion waiving that process before you go to the actual process. So I think that's what you're doing here. So I think I like it being done this way.
Okay. Anyone else? No comments. Okay. Anyone from the public looking to speak on this topic tonight? All right, seeing none, I would ask for a motion. Counselor Haas, are you
Yeah,
comfortable?
I'm comfortable. I move to recommend suspension of Resolution R 2028 to allow consideration of this matter.
Second.
I have a motion by Counselor Haas, seconded by Counselor Jones. This is on the suspension of our policy to consider this matter. Anyone have any questions on that? Seeing none, I would, yes?
I just
Counselor?
wanted to say, I think we should do this just to give it clarity.
I agree, absolutely. So we're going to be doing roll call votes this evening, starting with Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Haas?
Yes?
It's a yes for me. Counselor Jones?
Yes?
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
So that suspends that policy so that we can consider whether we would like to grant the authority for the staff to issue a building permit. I would be open for a motion for that. Counselor Haas?
I prefer not to make this motion.
Okay. Counselor Madison?
Move to recommend that the City Council grant the request to authorize the issuance of building permits to Jared Goodell for 3 duplexes on the property located at 57 Marlborough Street.
All right. So
Second.
we have a motion by Counselor Madison, seconded by Counselor Jones. Any questions on that motion? Yes, Counselor Haas?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think my only discomfort is that it sounds like we're going around the normal city processes of applying for building permits. I understand that 374 suggests that that's what we have to do, but I would have been more in favor of a differently worded motion, but we'll move ahead.
Thank you. I know this is very confusing because there are contradictory documents, and that is not super helpful for anyone up here trying to make decisions. And I think we can straighten that out without slowing the project down. Counselor Jones?
Yes. I just want to say, first of all, welcome back, George.
Yes.
This is partly the reason why I asked for the issue that's on more time at Joint Committee now, because this has potential. And I did point that out to our Community Development Director when I did introduce that as a concept that we need to address. So I think this plays right in with it, and this shows us that it can work. So thank you for presenting it, George.
Yes, and I think that when we talked about, the most bang for our buck at Joint Committee, when we organized that list for the Community Development Department, and I think this was on the top of the list because with very minimal effort, I think we can create more opportunities for development, which is what our council has been really standing up for over the last several years, and I'm happy to see a project coming before us. We talk about how hard development is in this community, and it's nice to see people putting in some effort to try to make that happen. City Manager?
I think I just want to offer a point of clarification in regards to the way that the motion is written. It does seem as if we're moving straight to issuing the building permit, but then that's not in fact the case. And so really it's granting the staff the authority to process and the application and issue it once all other requirements have been met.
That's right. And it also has to go to full council
Right.
for a final vote. Councilor Haas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would move to amend this motion to include the wording that the city manager just provided. I'm not sure I can restate it as well as you did.
So I think that the motion provides for her wording. It's currently, the way it's written says we're recommending that the city council grant the request to authorize the issuance of building permits to Jared Goodell, not requiring the issuance of those. So it is still on the Community Development Department's radar to review all of the plans and make sure that all the safety mechanisms that are required inside the building code are met before they issue those permits.
And I would just say this clarifying language will be included in the report out as well.
Thank you. And we'll have that at city council at that point, and we'll make sure the motion says what we want it to say. Thank you. I withdraw the amendment.
Okay, and I would just agree with Councilor Bozzi that the motion does do what it needs to do without moving forward with the actual issuance of the building permits.
Yes. All right, anyone else have any questions on this motion? This is the most conversation I've ever had on a motion, by the way. Seeing none, starting with Councilor Madison.
Yes.
Councilor Haas.
Yes.
It's a yes for me. Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Williams.
Yes.
All right, that is unanimous. It'll go to city council next week. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, next on our agenda, let's see, I've got to get back to the top here. The continued discussion on the donation of land at 0 Ashwillet Street for compensatory, to include compensatory flood storage. I believe we have Tara Kessler and Attorney Hannah.
Thank you. My name is Tom Hanna, and I am a partner with the law firm of BCM Environmental and Land Law. I'm just going to introduce this topic because I have Liza Sargent here, our civil engineer, who was unable to make it on June 12, the last time the committee met. So this has to do with the 0 Ashwillet Street property, approximately 3.5 acres. It was formerly the parking lot, overflow parking lot for the Colony Mill, as you will recall. And my client, JRR Properties, owns the 3.5 acres and has entered into an agreement with the city to donate approximately 2.5 acres for use as a city park, children's playground, and hopefully for a launching area for kayaks and canoes into the river. I also represent the Monadnock Conservancy, which is geared toward using the remaining land, approximately an acre, which JRR has agreed to gift to the Monadnock Conservancy. Monadnock Conservancy will put its new headquarters there. About 70% of the entire parcel, not just the portion that Monadnock Conservancy will get, but the entire 3.5 acres is in the 100-year floodplain. And under the city's regulations, any filling and loss of floodplain must be compensated with a flood compensation storage area. The only place that can happen for the Monadnock Conservancy's lot, which hasn't become a separate lot yet, but will, is mostly off-site on the land to be donated to the city. And so we've been talking to Monadnock Conservancy's civil engineer, Liza Sargent. We brought to this committee previously a concept plan that involved a larger flood compensation storage area than we're going to present tonight. It would have been a flatter, broader area, but the Public Works Director, Donna Lucier, proposed to Liza that we consider a kind of a collaborative effort with the city as it relates to the city's stormwater drainage pipe that goes north-south right through the entire site. And that is really all I'll say about that, because I'm not as competent as the person sitting next to me. The last thing I'll say is what we're asking for is a conditional approval of the concept, really, of encumbering the city's land with this flood compensation storage area, without which the Monadnock Conservancy really can't build. It needs to have that. And needless to say, it is immersed and well into fundraising, well into architectural and engineering plans, and really needs some assurance that this concept is acceptable to the City Council. So I'm going to ask Liza to explain it in a little more detail, and it relates to the plan that Tara handed out at the beginning of the meeting.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Liza Sargent, SV Associates. Thanks, Tom. That was a good introduction. This is the original concept plan that was submitted to the last meeting that was unable to attend. Larger, shallower area for flood storage compensation. On this plan, there in blue is the new concept for flood storage compensation, and this does several things. One, provides flood storage compensation for the proposed building for the Conservancy, and two, working conjunction with the city to upgrade the storm drain system that needs to be repaired, removing that pipe, having a riparian channel for that purpose. And it also makes a nice buffer between what would be the city's park and the Conservancy. There's proposed, those are stock photos of plantings that could be planted along the riparian swale, similar to the Pat Russell Park. I believe that's on Carpenter Street, maybe. And there were several questions at the last meeting that I was unable to attend that I'd like to address. One of the questions was the depth of the seasonal high water table. When we dug test pits, we did a series of test pits for the alteration of terrain permitting process. The groundwater was about 5 feet below the ground surface. They were modeling anywhere between 34 inches and 48 inches. So another question was, does the compensatory storage take into account the groundwater table? Absolutely. We can't provide flood storage comp in the groundwater table. One of the other questions was the elevation of the river. When Russ did the survey on June 18th, the water elevation is 471.4. This obviously varies. You know, we get a big rainfall event and it gets higher. So protecting the Conservancy site from flooding, we're required by FEMA to have it at least 1 foot above the flood elevation. We're proposing it to be 2.8 feet above. There were concerns or requests that it be similar to a mitigation project similar in Keene. So this tries to include that concern by having the riparian swale with plantings. It does provide for that drainage swale and also the flood storage comp for the Conservancy's project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. So I would say that I was not here for that initial meeting. I did go back and review the film so that I'm up to date, although a lot of our counselors here are definitely above my pay grade when it comes to some of the water conversation. So I'm excited to hear from our committee to see if some of these things that you've brought forward address the concerns that were brought up that night. Councilor Madison, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. First question is, who ultimately will be responsible for maintaining the compensatory storage swale?
Based on what I know was part of the motion recommended by Tom Mullins, that may be, the answer to that may be something that we need to work out. Okay. I know that the city needs to retain its right to maintain its stormwater drainage. So it very well could be a shared obligation. I suspect that the Monadnock Conservancy will have some obligation to maintain the riparian swale, which will be approved by FEMA as well as DES. And so it would not surprise me at all that it would be a shared or a shared obligation or mutual, by having some aspect by the city and some aspect by the Monadnock Conservancy, or perhaps the city would delegate to the Monadnock Conservancy but retain the right to step in at any point, since it does have that obligation to maintain its own easement.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Don Lucier, Public Works Director. I think that's a really good way of putting it, that would be a shared responsibility that we're going to have to work out. Public Works has a responsibility to maintain flowage. That's what is right now just a subsurface drainage system, a pipe. Does provide drainage to the area surrounding the Keene housing development on Castle Court and River Street. So we do have a responsibility to maintain that as open flowage so that the water can drain away from those properties. The Nanoc Conservancy is going to have an obligation to maintain the capacity of the storage. So they're not going to be able to allow, a lot of woody vegetation and sediment to accumulate in there. Parks and Rec is going to have an interest in maintaining whatever planting plans get agreed to. So I think there's a lot of details that still need to be worked out in terms of, coming up with a planting plan that is something that the Parks and Rec folks can maintain, with their staffing. That's something that Public Works has access to be able to get equipment in and maintain the flow line of the drainage swale, as well as your responsibility. So some details to be worked out, for sure. But I think shared responsibility is a great way of putting it.
Thank you. Yeah, my two big concerns with it are siltation, that we're going to get a lot of silt and sediment flowing in there from these big runoff events we've been getting lately. The other concern, and Councilor Williams going to scald at me for stealing his thunder, is going to be invasive species. I think over at Pat Russell Park, we've seen some parts of it have kind of become overgrown, especially with Japanese knotweed. And given that, the Monadnock Conservancy is, obviously a land conservancy, and they're going to be putting in a large investment to have a really nice building, we don't want to see it, become a nursery for invasives. So that's going to be another concern of mine with this. That's all I had.
Great, thank you. Councilor House?
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, my turn. Just curious, had you considered the alternative of elevating your site or elevating your building and allowing floodwaters to flow under and to lessen the amount of compensatory storage you might have to develop, might have to create?
That hasn't been considered.
Now, in the future, to anticipate future events, we have to look at these things a little differently. And I know that's not how our codes and laws work right now, but they'll be changing. I mean, even this design is based off of the flood maps from 2006 is the current one in effect. Have you used anything else to set your levels?
So we have to design per the current FEMA standards, so no, I'm designing per the current regulations, both with the federal and the state guidelines.
Mm-hmm. This will go to what Councilor Madison said, what we used to conceive of as an infrequent event is more frequent, and I think cleaning out this compensatory storage after an event may come to be something we're doing regularly. Is this just displaced by the building? Is that what you're offsetting, the building footprint?
The building, and also part of the parking lot, and our stormwater treatment for AOT has to be above the 10-year flood elevation. So the stormwater treatment system is also elevated. So it's for all of those items.
So part of the parking lot is still in the flood zone?
Mm. It runs through the center. This is the parking area, and this is the flood area.
So this portion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilor Jones?
Thank you. Glad we have a hydrologist and an engineer here, because mine is more conceptual than theirs would be. If I may, Madam Chair, may I ask a question of the Public Works Director?
Yes. Don? Thank you. Don't go far.
We have two issues here. One is the compensatory storage, and the other is the storm drain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the storm drain, we're just told, goes north-south, and I'm just wondering if there's something else can be done with that storm drain. is that being fed from the north by the street receptacles and is
So,
it effluent in the south?
to the north
the
of
river?
its property, it's actually open channel today, just immediately north of its property. That's actually on Keene Housing parcel, part of the Keene Housing development there at Castle Court. So Eliza was pointing to it,
That would
but
be
it's
south, right?
to the north.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, upstream. So upstream of its property where the water flows in, it's open channel today. We're going to basically be continuing that open channel instead of removing the pipe. To the south of the parcel and, on the parcel, so Eliza, if you could point to the head wall that you're proposing. So about halfway down the parcel, as you go from north to south, the stream will be rerouted into a pipe, another pipe. So we're not removing all of the pipe, we're removing a portion of it that's being used for the compensatory storage. The rest will remain in a pipe. I think getting to your underlying question is, can we reroute that stream to just daylight to the river? And the answer to that is no. If the West Street Dam was removed, that would probably be possible. But with the dam and the mill pond, the former mill pond there today, the elevations don't work out. So that's actually, this water course and the drainage area that it takes water from goes down Gilboa Street, out to Ashwillet Street, down Gilboa Street. It goes through the Colony Mill parking lot. And eventually it daylights in what used to be referred to as Mill Creek. And that is basically a man-made ditch that eventually goes to the Ashwillet, but further downstream, well below the dam. So because the dam is there, we can't reroute it to go directly to the river. Is that answering your question?
You answered my question. My next question was going to be, is there any other options for that storm drain?
Yeah, the other option would be to remove the dam, and that is a whole other conversation we're not going to have tonight.
Thank you.
So I guess conceptually also, I would like to understand, does this design prevent us from doing what we want to do with the property to the city manager or to the Parks and Rec?
Andy Buena, Deputy City Manager. The current design, we worked through with everyone, and I believe we should be okay. We've kind of talked about it at the Wishwillet River Park Advisory Board as well, just a preliminary concept. And basically, we're parking lot, kind of a road to kayak access and a playground. And we definitely have room enough to do all of that in that space. So we should be good with the design that we came up with.
Great, thank you. Counselor Williams?
Yeah, I would just say that I like this plan a lot more than the last one. It encumbers less space, and I think it has more of the characteristics of a creek that can also double as a place where pollinator plants can grow and can be maintained in a very natural state that I think will be a benefit. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Madison.
Just one more question. You said you did some test borings in the area.
Right.
What was the subsurface like? Are we looking at like urban fill, or was it just like sand and loam?
So it used to be a former parking lot, and the last AOT permit, we removed the asphalt and put loam back. So you've got 3 inches of loam over about 18 inches of structural fill, and then there's more soils typical of next to the river, some sands, and then silty clay layer underneath that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And I would just close by saying I agree with Councilor Williams. I like this design a lot better. I think it'll complement the facility. Monadnock Conservancy wants to build well. I think it'll provide a lot of habitat both for pollinators for birds, and for some of the aquatic wildlife we see in the river, such as amphibians.
Great. All right, I'm going to open this up to the public. Is there anyone here from the public who'd like to speak about this evening? Yes, come forward.
I'm Ryan Owens. I'm the Executive Director of the Monadnock Conservancy. Good to see you all again. I just want to affirm that what Councilor Madison and Councilor Williams are expressing about the complementarity of this design with our intentions for our building, the educational opportunities, the fact that this will be a much more natural wetland-like water course is exactly what we have in mind. And then further, to speak to the issue of invasives, my staff and I cannot help ourselves from pulling out invasives whenever we see them. If we can't, we start to sort of twitch a little bit. So we will absolutely be on the lookout for invasives staying out of there.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I would be looking for a motion. Counselor Jones.
Thank you. I would move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate, execute, and/or accept all documents required for the purpose of constructing and maintaining required compensatory flood storage located on property to be transferred to the city by JRR Properties LLC, being a portion of 0 Ashwelot Street property for the benefit of JRR Properties LLC or its transferees, successors, or assigns, and is preliminarily depicted as concept number 3, effective as the date of the transfer of the property into the city.
I second.
Motion by Counselor Jones, second by Counselor Madison. Any questions on that motion? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote, starting with Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Oh,
Can I go back?
Counselor Jones?
It looks like I missed a line on the motion, and it was on the plan prepared by SVE Engineering dated 01 January 24. We should have been in there. I missed that line.
Do we need to reread? No? Okay. All right, so we do have a motion by Counselor Jones, seconded by Counselor Madison. Starting with Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Haas.
Yes.
It's a yes for me. Counselor
Yes.
Jones? Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Great, and so our recommendation will go to the full city council next week.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes. City Attorney.
Yeah, in a bit of more of a quiet place, which I think we all appreciate. But on that last matter that you dealt with, I think it's important. My understanding is that Don Lucier and Andy were pretty instrumental in figuring out a way to do this, concept so that it had less of an impact on the property. And I think that the committee should understand that. I think that's important. That's how we got here.
So it sounds like what the city attorney is giving a nod to our public works director and our deputy city manager for getting this project to the place that it's at today, their efforts in helping. And I think that getting to a design that makes this council happy and gets at what the city needs from this project, it's always an art. And so I appreciate all the effort that goes in by staff too. Great, thank you guys.
So do we. Thank you.
All right, so our last item tonight is going to be our most exciting. This is our City Council Rules of Order amendments. We have our city attorney here, and I believe we have our city clerk here who is going to introduce each of the items. Tom will be available to answer questions for us as we go, or to offer any suggestions for amendments or questions that we might have. And during the last time we discussed these amendments, I had asked that these amendments stand alone. So as we're going through them tonight, you will see that each amendment does refer to a specific section of our rule of order. We're going to address them individually, and we don't have to make a decision on any of them or all of them this evening. If we do end up at a place where we have some questions that we want some additional review, we can choose to put portions of this back onto more time, and we can move other portions forward to the full council. I do see that we have a couple of council members here with us. We do not meet a quorum of our full council this evening, so I will allow participation as long as we don't have a third member joining us at some point, which I don't believe we will, but just in case. So I'm going to start off with Patty.
Great, thank you. The attorney asked that I just sort of give an introduction of the draft that's before you. So this is the second time you've seen the draft, and I took the liberty of creating a document that is of suitable format to actually be introduced for first reading. So I assume that all of the recommended strike-throughs were accepted and all the new language was added, and what you have before you is a document that's easier to read and sort of comprehend. Behind that, in your packet, was sort of the true red-lined, so you can see everything that went out, every text that went out, every words that were inserted. As the chair indicated, it is now by amendment number, suggesting that every amendment will require a separate vote. That is, we sometimes do that, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but I heard the chair requesting sort of separate votes on this one, so that's why you see these amendments 1 through 6. I also, when I was looking at the document, I took the liberty of making a few edits that sort of serve to ensure consistency with terms throughout the rest of the rules. So there's a few things that are actually coming from my perspective as the clerk that has to use the document often. So just at a very high level, the First Amendment introduced the concept of workshops. That's in sort of the second paragraph. The Second Amendment introduced the concept that a member should rise in their place as opposed to being mandatory that you rise in your place at a council meeting. Oops, my pages are out of order. This is not good. The third.
Go back to the first one.
Yep. Give me a second for my packet in order again.
The first one is relating to workshops at the meeting.
Okay, yeah, no, never mind, I was on the wrong page.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
fine.
We're all getting our pages in order here.
All right.
Item 2 is the right to the floor, that a member should instead of shall rise. Item 3, I have.
Is the conflict of interest that expanded it to include a counselor's spouse, parent, child, 18 years of older. And there also is a change in the statement of interest, which is your annual filing of any potential conflicts, and that now needs to be expanded to not only the mayor, counselor, and the new addition would be, and for their respective immediate family members.
Okay.
So that was Amendment 3. And Amendment 4, which is dealing with communications, this is the only section that is actually new text for you for tonight. And it speaks to the issue that communications requesting that the council consider matters not germane to either the state or to the city, over which the city lacks the authority to take any action, shall not be agendized by the clerk, provided, however, the clerk shall place such communication into the councilor's mailboxes. That's Amendment 4. Amendment 5 is really sort of housekeeping. It was just clarifying that after a public hearing, if there is written comment, that is agendized for the succeeding committee meeting. It does not sort of invite the petitioner to speak. So it sort of clarifies that. It's only written testimony. And then the last amendment is dealing with a section that actually has never been triggered by any action of the council since it was introduced probably 20 years ago, I bet. And it deals with the resubmission of items now previously considered, sort of a slight change in the wording there. And it relies on the fact that you deal with resubmission through a proper motion for reconsideration. Previously, it talked about, well, if you're past reconsideration, but you give us some new information and maybe things would change, then we can then we bring the issue back. And again, that's never been triggered. I don't even know if it was triggered, how anyone would decide if that was new information that would actually result in a different vote. So we just sort of clarified that it really goes back to the reconsideration process. And then also ask for the communication to be placed in the council's boxes. So those are the 6 amendments. And again, the only one that is substantive in terms of tonight is the one about the communications that are not germane to the city.
Yes. So I'm just going to start at the top, and it is slightly confusing because Amendment 1 has to do with Section 2. Those numbers do not correlate.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to point that out. This is special meetings and workshop meetings, and this is where we clarify that we can have a workshop and that the council is choosing to restrict the voting at those workshops to a recommendation and a movement of the item back to a committee for further consideration. And I believe we've reviewed this already. Do we have anybody on the committee that wants to speak to the language that's identified here? Counselor Haas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The special meetings can be called by 7 members of the city council. I believe it's in there somewhere.
It is.
Workshops can be called by the city council, or how many members of the city council?
I also read that as well when I read it through today. City Attorney, I don't know if your intention was for that to be clarified in the workshop section, the language in regards to how many city councilors are required to call a workshop is not clarified, and I'm not sure if that's just a Scribner's error.
Yeah, no, that's a really good catch. It should be, and you know, we can do this as sort of a Scribner's error because you can't have more than 8 members of the city council calling for any, or 8 members or more, because at that point you're basically have created an unlawful meeting. So we'll insert the same number, 7.
Great. So when that goes to full council, that will be updated? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Counselor Haas?
I have one more on Section 2. Is the workshops open to public speaking, public input?
Yes. It's a meeting of the city, well, no, let me clarify that, I'm sorry. It's a meeting of the city council. The public has a right to attend the meetings of the city council. Whether or not the council wants to allow public comment would be up to the council at that point, usually the discretion of the chair. But that would have to be something that you would have to decide on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Jones? On this one? No? Counselor Williams?
Okay, right now.
On this one?
I guess I'm just concerned about that 7-member requirement and what the attorney just brought up with respect to creating a quorum. And it seems to me that there's also the risk of creating a quorum of any of the subcommittees or any of the committees, which would be 3 members of any committee out of that 7. So maybe that 7 would be better off as 5.
City Attorney?
Yeah, I'm considering that. Technically, I don't think that's a bad idea either. The language that was the 7, was carried over from before. We did take out the or more for exactly that reason, and I think the councilor's point again is well taken. That frankly, I wasn't really considering the possibility of a quorum of the council committee members, although technically it's an action of these individuals, acting sort of individually in this capacity. But yeah, I think Patty, we sort of defer to you too on this, but having it be 5, I think that's not inappropriate.
I would agree.
Counselor Madison, did you have a follow-up to that? No? Okay.
We can make that change again.
All right, I would say let's move forward with that change.
One.
Hold on. Go ahead, Counselor Haas.
Thank you. Further on the idea of avoiding a quorum of any committee, we specify that the 5 must be from, not create a quorum from any committee?
Yeah, we will add that.
Yeah.
So before we move on, I did see a couple of members of the public raising their hands. Do you want to start with Mayor Khan?
Yeah. Jay Kahn, 135 Darling Road. Just want to clarify on this number less than 7. That one I understand. I think we all get that one. Anything less than that, I mean, a quorum of a committee is 3. So I don't want to see us take something that is very clear and add something that is unclear.
And I think we had another comment. Yes, Councilor Favlis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's Jacob Favalis, 229 Main Street. 5 to me is too low a number of city councilors. That's 1/3 of council being able to call a special meeting, and that seems too low to me. So I think if 5 gets in, I would probably vote against this rule of order. We should be getting to what we get to in the regular course of business, except for extenuating circumstances, and I worry that 5 councilors could too easily force special meetings on specific issues that is really not close to, at least 7 is close to a majority of the council being interested in discussing, so.
Great, thank you. Councilor Jones?
Can I ask Jacob a question?
Yes, please don't run away too fast.
You didn't like the number 5, but we can still do 6 and not have a majority of any of the 3 committees. Is that better for you?
Better, yes. I'm not necessarily concerned about a quorum of the committees. But if it's between 5 and 6, then yes, 6 is better for me.
6 is better. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay. All right, so let's just digest that for a second. Do we have an opinion at this table, or Councilor Williams, on 5 or 6?
My preference is 5, just because 5 is still pretty strong voice within the council, and it's going to be hard to pick and choose which councilors if you're trying to get a workshop going, there's a difficulty in picking and choosing which councilors would go for it, and so I would be against creating additional hurdles for that. So my preference is 5, but 6 is also better than 7.
Councilor Madison.
Thank you. I agree with Councilor Favalis to some extent. I am concerned that this could be abused to call special meetings for either minute reasons or for political reasons or for showboating. So I definitely understand and get Councilor Williams' point. I also kind of agree with him. I think 6 maybe is the right number.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Haas?
Thank you. Yeah, I like 6 because we have, certainly the mayor and the city manager can still call a special meeting. And if we do 6 and avoid quorums, that means the 3 standing committees have all felt it's important enough to make this extra effort to call a meeting. So you'd have 2 people from each of the standing committees. You don't have a quorum, and everybody's happy.
Councilor Jones? Are you comfortable with 6, or are you like 5?
I was the one that said it, yes.
6, okay. All right, yes, I'm in agreement with the 6. I think it gets us close to what Councilor Favalis is saying. I definitely think that we are not above having members of this council that could try to abuse this, and I don't want to set us up for that. So I like having to have 2 members of each committee signing on board with this. I think that takes the issue out of it as well. Whatever issue it is, you have to have members of other committees that are willing to want to push it forward as well. Yes, Councilor Haas.
Thank you. We'll apply that to special meetings as well.
I think that we would apply that to both special meetings and workshops. Is that
Thank you.
that clear? Yes, okay. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
just to clarify for our drafting purposes, and I actually do like the number 6 as well. But my preference would be to say 6, or perhaps the language basically that says, called by 6 counselors, which of which a quorum of each committee can't be, in place. The concern that I have is if we draft it that says you have to have 2 members from each committee, then you could have, one group of one committee saying, no, we're not going to do that. It should be counselors writ large, just making sure that there isn't a quorum of any one committee. That's my comment.
so I understand what you're saying, I just don't know mathematically how it could ever happen if we're following your rule, if it's not 2 from each committee.
Well, that's the point. Mathematically, it might not be able to happen if you have a committee, 2 members of the committee that say, no, I don't want to do it.
That's right. But you have 5 people to ask. So I think you have a better, 5 members of the committee.
Right, exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think that we can word it, as long as it says 6 members not to create a quorum of any subcommittee, I think we're safe. And then that would apply to both workshops and special meetings.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I would like to take these motion by motion. I see that the clerk tried to create an easy out for us, but I don't know that we're going to get there. So just let's do one by one. I would be open to, I'm not sure where we are in our motions tonight. I would be open to a motion, I think, Councilor Madison, to move this one forward.
Move to recommend that the city attorney be directed to introduce Amendment 1 to the Rules of Order for first reading as discussed.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Madison, second by Councilor Haas. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote, starting with Councilor Madison.
Yes.
Councilor Haas?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Williams?
Yes.
Okay, so that one is unanimous. That one will be going to council next week. All right, next, Amendment 2, which applies to Section 11, the right to the floor. When recognized by the chair, a member should rise or shall rise in his or her place. That is the word we are discussing this evening. This is the amendment that triggered me asking to have these separated. The council did host a workshop on these rules of order, and there was a recommendation that came out of that workshop along with each of these rules that you wanted the Planning Licenses and Development Committee to review. And this is one that I can't support the council's recommendation on. It goes back to the abuse question. I do think that there are things that counselors can use in order to portray their emotional reactions to certain members of our committee, and rising or not rising. Although I think Councilor Williams' points are very well made, that there are definitely individuals who require a suspension of this rule and should be allowed to sit if they have a medical need for that, but that this is one of those rules that people will use in order as a protest and not as respectfully as they should. And one of the things that I've really appreciated about my time on council is that there is this decorum that we keep and this level of maturity and respect that we show one another. And I think when you start peeling away the layers and you take away the structure that forces us into that mold, you are going to delve into places that we might not want to end up. So regardless of what the committee says tonight, this is one I'm not going to vote in favor of. I want to hear what you all think as far as what we want to put forward to the full council, though.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, Councilor Jones? Sure.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
to the chair? It's just the rising part that you're
I think
Opposed to?
giving.
Not the other parts?
So, and shall respectfully address, I mean, those are the two words that we're changing, shall to should, and then adding a shall for respectfully address. Obviously, adding shall respectfully address, I'm fine. I think that's very much just a way of speaking that we're clarifying. I don't think that that's identifying that we weren't speaking respectfully prior. I think that where we're changing shall to should, that gives members of our committee the opportunity to make a decision of whether or not they're feeling in the mood that night to be respectful or not. And although I don't think any of us would intend for that to happen, I think it will happen under those circumstances. So I just personally can't get behind it. Councilor Madison.
Thank you. I agree. There's an old saying in the military that you salute the rank, not the man. If anyone's watched the last episode of Band of Brothers, you can see that. When Major Winters makes his old commanding officer who has a lower rank than him later salute him. Anyways, we stand and rise before we address the council because we're showing respect to the other members of the council, to the mayor, and really to the citizens of the city who elected those people. I am concerned that this would be abused. If I recall correctly, a number of years ago, one councilor did try to change this immediately after someone he didn't like was elected mayor. So I think we've already seen that people see that as a thing to abuse. So the only change I would make is a member shall rise if able. I do recognize, sometimes someone's on crutches. We may have a counselor someday who is disabled and may not be able to rise. Obviously, we're not gonna make a scene in council to make them do that. So if you're not able to rise, if you got a bad knee, there's some medical reason you can't rise, bring it up with the chair respectfully and, be exempted from that role for that night. So I would just change it to member shall rise if able and respectfully address and then keep the rest of it.
Yes, and I'd like to use, as an example, I know all of us are aware of the differences between the style of meeting in a council meeting or even at a committee meeting where all of our comments are being made through the chair. We are sitting here, we're not rising, but when we are in a workshop forum and there is banter back and forth and counselors aren't required to rise to hold their place on the floor, I think that you just create an opportunity for things to devolve into a little bit of chaos. And I think by asking people to rise, you're identifying that that is the person that we are all showing respect to at that time also, and that has the right to the floor and what they're saying in that moment, and that shouldn't be spoken over. So I think I do like the wordsmithing and changing it back to shall, but asking but including if able.
I was having a similar thought as you were saying it, and I was just thinking that the language "an able-bodied member shall" would be a way to simplify that and accomplish the same objective. But I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. Councilor Haas.
Thank you. I like that change. Well thought out, Councilor Madison. I always go to what's our enforcement mechanisms, and I'm sure it's a lot easier to enforce censure for disrespectful address than it will be to enforce censure because someone chose not to rise in their chair. But I like the wording. It makes the point and leaves the opening.
Councilor Jones, do you have an opinion?
I think I brought this up in the workshop. The way it used to be unwritten, and used to be everyone rose to address the mayor, but if we were asking questions, say there's a consultant or a petitioner out there, you sat in your seat. It was just to show respect for the dais up here. And this kind of this is saying we're gonna rise for everything, is that correct?
Tom?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that a little bit as we've been talking about this. One of the benefits of having these kinds of discussions is you always sort of, look at it and go, haven't thought about that. In terms of the able or not able, that's certainly up to you. Remember, this language was really pulled from the conversations that you had previously. But one of the things I was thinking about in terms of going back to, meetings in general, like special meetings or workshop meetings, is that the rules of the council, except as otherwise modified, should apply in those situations. However, you want to keep, I think, the informality that's associated with workshops and, at the committee levels, you don't do that. So one of the things I've been thinking about with respect to Section 11 is sort of making it more specific to the council meetings, because otherwise it sets up an ambiguity, as was just pointed out, I think. So one of the things that we could think about with Section 11 is, specifying that, during a regular meeting of the city council, regular or maybe special meeting of the city council, when recognized by the chair, a member, shall, if you want to put that language in there, if able, or something to that effect, and then continue on with that. I think that's a good thought, because otherwise you get that ambiguity.
So should we clarify that during a regular or special city council member, when recognized by the chair, a member shall rise when able in his or her place and shall respectfully address the mayor or temporary chair?
Yes.
And so on, and then say, do we have to clarify that council member does not need to rise when addressing a consultant?
Well, that's a different question, unfortunately, because I think that there are some issues, and Patty can speak to this better than I. There are some issues, I think, with the broadcast, the camera angles, the microphones. That's a Patty question at this point.
I don't think we have an issue with councilors remaining in their seat while they're looking to the presenters.
Okay.
I think it's more to the dais and that view.
Okay. So Tom,
I guess the concern that I have at that point is it starts to get wordy.
Right.
Now we have to make a distinction, during a regular special council meeting, except when addressing a consultant or something like that. It starts to get a little bit more complex.
Well, I mean, it does say when will respectfully address the mayor. And so by virtue of not saying that not including that wordy language, it does leave room for interpretation that you would not have to. And I think that's going to have to be something that we would have as an understanding, and that the mayor would have to address with individual councilors if he thought they were not being appropriate.
I think that's a wonderful point. Because it really does talk about when you're addressing the mayor, the temporary chair, and I think at that point it really is part of the chair's responsibility to kind of police, what happens in the meeting.
Okay. Councilor Williams, do you want to weigh in on this one?
I think adding the, if able or an able-bodied person shall or something like that is I'm open for that. What I don't want to have is a situation where someone has to declare a disability to the mayor in public. If they need that accommodation, and there's been times when maybe I didn't need the accommodation at the beginning of a meeting, but like my back went out halfway through. I don't think people should have to talk about their medical problems in a public forum. So it would be my hope that if someone uses that, that should be assumed. And, you know, if the mayor has a problem with it, you know, maybe they can follow up with the counselor later.
I would hope that that would be the case. I think it would be a very uncomfortable conversation to be had on the floor in general, unless there was some underlying reason why the mayor might think that that person was intending to be disrespectful. So in cases where I've seen people not rise, I don't think that it has been an issue. The mayor's addressed or had issues with members of the council. The mayor's addressed it outside of the council meeting, personally, one-on-one. I think that's a pretty standard policy, and I'm sure our current mayor would follow it. And mayors coming on board would get instruction on how to handle those types of things. So I'm hoping that that would be self-solving, if that's any consolation. Councilor Williams. Councilor Jones, did you want to add something?
Yeah, nowhere in here does it say where you have to say your inability, and it's nobody else's business. I don't think, I had one, it happened to me one time when Dale Prejean was the mayor. The button broke on my pants. I didn't want to stand. You know, for everyone's sake. Yeah. And so I don't think there's a need to give a reason. But I would also like to go with what Tom said and add regular council meetings. That into there.
Yes, I see. All right, I'm going to open this one up to the public.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jacob Favales, 229 Main Street. I would respectfully disagree with the chair's position that addressing the mayor from a seated position is inherently disrespectful. I am a member of a number of deliberative bodies outside of council. This is the only place where I stand to address the presiding officer. I don't think there's a culture of disrespect that permeates the other two spaces where I serve on that body. So I would support should here. The language around able-bodied or if able, I think is an appropriate addition, but I don't see it as inherently disrespectful to stay seated. I also think that, you know, we don't talk about counselors being disrespectful in workshop settings, and yet we're specifically carving those out to allow us to remain seated. We certainly wouldn't want counselors to be disrespectful to the public or petitioners or consultants, and yet we just had a conversation about kind of carving that out. So I would support should here. I don't know that I feel real strongly either way, but I'm not convinced that a counselor sitting down is necessarily a sign of disrespect. I agree it could be opened up for abuse, and then, you know, that's a conversation that either the mayor or the council as a whole, or ultimately the voters at the ballot box would need to have, and a decision that they would need to make. But I think should accomplish this here.
The only way that it doesn't open it up for disrespect is if you remove it completely and you say shall never. Because if we're saying should, and some are not, it will be used as protest. And I think that in my experience with this forum, you're absolutely right. I attend meetings all the time where I am not being disrespectful and I sit and address other members. We hold ourselves to an extraordinarily high standard in this room, particularly, and we deal with some really tough topics. And I, sitting in this seat as a committee chair, know what it's like to have to keep control of the conversation that's going on while participating in the forward progress and dealing with members of the public and what sort of interactions are happening, and creating a level of basic understanding of what of respect that needs to be held for this dais is really important. When I need to shut something down that's happening in that audience, there has to be a certain level of respect associated with the position that's here. And I think that in a full council meeting, we as a council have complete authority to do what we want in that room, but we have to show respect to the dais in order to get to the end, to the finish line. And then our mayor needs to be constantly shepherding us toward the end goal. That's what his job is, right? He's not a voting member, but he is to get us to where we need to be. And when you start stripping away some of the formalities of this room, I think and in my experience, I've seen counselors push the limits in lots of different ways, not just in this way, but in other ways that I feel like it would not take long for people to use it as a tool. And that's just my personal perspective. Okay. City Clerk, did you want to add something? Oh.
No.
No, okay. Mayor Collins.
Jay Kahn, Darling Road. So I think that the shape of this, the shall, is very comparable to the state's legislative bodies. And Representative City Councilor Jones would recognize that as a model in the State House and is in the State Senate. If you are addressing a motion, that you rise. And I think the accommodation, if able, is and of course humane. I mean, I can't imagine the inhumanity of not recognizing somebody's inability, should that be evident. The nature of the council meeting, I'm trying to imagine the situation when a consultant might be present. I could see that in a public hearing, perhaps, as that question answer is taking place. I can't see it if we are distinguishing between having a consultant come forward as we're debating a resolution, an ordinance. I think that starts to confuse things. It starts to add some management difficulties to have to interpret that. So I guess I'd want to make sure that we're staying with RISE during a council meeting.
Yes.
Under any circumstance, when we're in a workshop, understood that there is less formality, so long as the clerk feels comfortable. Because we did have that conversation about we have audience members, and whether it's not just for the camera, the audience too is trying to sift through in this, and that's when we got into the, do we need a horseshoe, or well, we're not redesigning the furnishings at this point. We're just talking about our stage as it exists, and there is some consideration for the audience to be able to see who it is that's addressing at any particular time, whether that's in a workshop or not. So I'm trying to separate my considerations. I think in a council meeting, there shouldn't be this, if this, then this. And in the workshop, I think we need to be considerate of the audience.
And I do think in all council meetings, and even in our committee meetings, all comments are to be made through the chair. My committee members should be directing their questions to me to field for you, and vice versa. At a full council meeting, councilors should be directing their questions to the mayor to field for them. So invariably, even if a consultant was sat, we should be addressing the mayor to get to that resolution that we're looking for. Okay, so that's a lot of debate on this. I think that what I'd like to, oh, yes, sorry. We have one more member of the public.
Member of the public, Laura Tobin, Center Street.
Yes.
I did not grow up associating with standing. I don't associate that necessarily with respect. It's a thing that I do. That's just not how I was raised, but if it is helpful in maintaining order, I'm more than happy to do it. I would also say that I think it's important to make sure that what we would expect people to do if they are not able to stand, oftentimes those reasons can be embarrassing or come on suddenly. It should be a personal decision, I think, whether or not, how much of that they explain. So I just want to be careful what we're asking people to do and how we are, I guess, even labeling that person, in the sense that I do have reservations about saying all able-bodied people in this, unless it's saying physically able-bodied people, because then it's saying that if I can't stand for some reason, then I must not be abled. I'm not an abled counselor. So I think that would be just, and maybe in general, fewer words is better in this case.
Yes, Counselor Jones.
Well, I think we agreed not to put the able-bodied part in there.
So I think that I heard that we want to go back to shall, and shall if able, which does not say able-bodied or able-minded.
Okay, that's fine.
I think if we just stick with a member shall, if able, rise in his place or her place, that resolves some of that. I think I understand your concern in protecting someone's right to privacy, and I agree with that. I think that there are lots of things that we do that are awkward. For instance, that we have to announce why we're Zooming. Sometimes the reason that we had a counselor who had medical reasons why he could not attend meetings, and we created a lot of our Zoom policy around a situation that we were experiencing with this counselor. I think we could feel for that situation because of the extent of the medical conditions that were happening with that person, but still being able to they weren't able to be present in the room, but they were able to cognitively answer questions and vote on behalf of their constituents who elected them, that it felt right that we continue post-COVID with a Zoom policy, but our Zoom policy requires that you give the reason why you're Zooming. And so for that person to every time say, I have a medical condition that's preventing me from attending, seems cumbersome and awkward and uncomfortable. And I feel for it more in that setting, honestly, than I do in this setting where I believe that respectfully the mayor would address it privately outside of council. Like, just want to make sure everything's okay. I saw that you weren't able to stand today. Is there any accommodation that you need in the future? And that person might say, oh no, I'm fine, thank you. But so that there would be some acknowledgement of that it might be an ongoing thing or not an ongoing thing, and that would be between the mayor and the individual counselor. Where in this Zoom situation, like Bobby had to announce this evening, Councilor Williams, that he was on vacation with his family. There could have been a million reasons why he needed to Zoom that might have been none of our business. But we've chosen to create a policy, and it might even be a state policy that requires us. It's not something, but there are areas where we have boundaries that are uncomfortable and blurry. And I think in general, we try to be as respectful as we can of each of our individual privacies. But I do like the direction that this is going in. I feel more comfortable presenting it to council this way, and I can speak to it at full council. And, obviously we're not a quorum of council, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen when we get there. There's always room for things to go sideways. Councilor Jones.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on everything you've been talking about was being functional and respectful. There's also the decorum aspect and the traditional aspect.
Yes.
That also goes along with that. And I think it's part of what we are, the decorum and the tradition.
And
so I think standing should be part of a regular council meeting.
And I also didn't consider, but really appreciated the perspective that the clerk and the mayor brought up about the members of the public seeing us and who is speaking. In a joint committee meeting, we don't stand, And all of our placards are facing the audience, and I don't know all of the planning board members as well as I should, and I can't always tell who is speaking. So I do appreciate that perspective on it as well. I'd like to present it to the council with this direction, if the rest of you are comfortable with that. So, with the understanding of what the amendments we will be adding full council meeting and special meeting. We will be going back to shall if able. And with those changes, I would be open for a motion. Councilman.
Move to recommend that the city attorney be directed to introduce Amendment 2 regarding Section 11 rights of floor to the rules of order for a first reading as discussed.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Madison, second by Councilor Haas. Any questions on that motion? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Jacob Favelis, Main Street. Just a question for.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Council members are not allowed to speak once motion is made.
I will ask it in the next.
You get another opportunity. That's correct. All right. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote, starting with Councilor Madison.
Yes.
Councilor Haas?
Yes.
It's a yes for me. Councilor Jones?
Yes.
Councilor Williams?
Yes.
All right, and that one is unanimous. Moving forward. Amendment 3. Only 4 more to go. Voting and conflict of interest. I believe this one might also have some discussion. This is something that we clarified over the previous years to include this new form that we must file with the city clerk. And so, coming out of the workshop, it was the will of the council to have us consider that, along with some of these minor changes to some language, that we include conflict of interest shall be deemed to exist when a councilor's child 18 years of older, that language be included, and that also currently we only have to identify boards and commissions for which we sit on, but we will now be identifying them for the family members and children 18 years of age or older in the future. So, unless I missed something, city attorney or clerk, any tune-up to that?
Nope.
Okay. So do we have anyone who wants to start us off here? Councilor Jones.
Yes. Is the attorney still with us?
Tom, are you with us?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm here, yep.
Okay, I just wanted to ask a question about live-in partners. We don't, New Hampshire does not have common law marriage. They have, I think it's called co-residential dating. Should that be inclusive in this part?
That's really up to you all about whether, if you have people who are kind of living together in a non-familial kind of status, that's a real question for you. This is your rule. You can sort of draft it any way that you think is appropriate.
My gut just says that we have to draw a line somewhere.
I'm with you.
Okay. Anyone else?
And just as a quick aside, while it's true that we don't have common law marriages defined west of the Mississippi, there are certain instances in New Hampshire where common law marriage can be recognized primarily in a state context. So just to clarify that.
Anyone else? Councilor Williams?
Yeah, just to say, I don't love this amendment. I think the conflict of interest for the individual is, our declarations there, which are fairly recent requirement, I believe. I think they go far enough. I don't think we need to be making the private business of spouse and adult children public. That's my thought. I would prefer not to pass this and to keep it as it is.
Okay. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Councilor Favlis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jacob Favlis, 229 Main Street. Not specific to this motion, but a process question for the city attorney. There have been a number of substantive amendments made, I think, that go beyond just Scrivener's amendments tonight. And so my question for the city attorney is if this process satisfies the prior written notice piece of amendments to the rules of order, because I do think that these are substantially and materially different than the amendments that were presented at a prior city council meeting.
Yeah, Madam Chair, okay?
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, the way where this is in the process at this point is, I mean, you can essentially change this around any way you want tonight, because what will happen is this will then be introduced to the city council essentially for a first reading as a change to the rules of order. And then it's going to be coming back to PLD for final adoption. So, because it does require prior notice, the final amendments do require prior notice to the city council, and then voting on it at another meeting. So that's what this is going to do. And then it takes 2/3 of the city council to adopt these amendments at this point. So that's why the motion basically reads to have the city attorney, working with the city clerk, to present these into the city council at the next meeting, and then they're coming back.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to Amendment 3. Are we comfortable leaving it as written? I know Councilor Williams is not. Councilor Jones, no?
No, when this originally came out, I was opposed to it, so things haven't changed.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You're fine with it, Councilor Hall?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with it. I think in this modern times, we need to be as clear as possible.
I hate to harp on all of the things that can go wrong and to think negatively about my fellow councilors, but I've witnessed inconsistencies with people's voting patterns based on their associations with or familial associations with different groups, and I like that we have this disclosure. I don't necessarily, I agree with Councilor Williams, I think for us it's super important. As it extends to family members, I can see it gets a little more blurry, and children, I don't necessarily think that that's we have to draw a line somewhere, which I said earlier, but this was the way it came out of the workshop, that the council wanted to see it drafted this way. And I'm not necessarily opposed to it either. So I'd like to send this one on to full council the way it's written, and we can see what the full council has to say. Councilor Madison?
Yep. Move to recommend that the city attorney be directed to introduce Amendment 3 regarding Section 15, voting and conflicts of interest, to the rules of order for a first reading as discussed.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Madison, second by Councilor Jones. Any question on the motion? Seeing none, Councilor Jones, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, there are some parts to this that I disagree with, but I think based on what you said, it should go to the full city council and let them decide. I think we should send it the way it is.
Great. All right, starting with Councilor Madison.
Yes.
Councilor Huss?
Yes.
Yes for me. Councilor
Yes.
Jones? Councilor Williams?
No.
Okay, that's 4-1. Amendment number 4, Section 25, Communications. This is the first time that we're reviewing this one as a committee. This is a draft that was given to us by the attorney, and I think it's timely considering that we've had some additional interactions with items that would relate to this. So I know we've all reviewed it at this point. I don't know, does anyone want to start off on discussing how the written policy would affect us when it comes to non-germane business? Counselor Madison?
I'm happy to go first. Yeah, I'm in support of this. Historically, I've been okay with, bringing outside items to the council, but I think since joining the council, there's been a few incidences where I've felt that our willingness to hear those issues has been abused. It kind of kicked off my first year. We had someone bring a Medicare for All proposal to the city, asked that we make a recommendation to it. And I agreed to go along with it. But I told the person, I would like to see you bring this to your own city, your own town council. And the woman was from Dublin. And the response I got back, you would think I asked her to give up her firstborn. It was absolutely not. How dare you? And I was just astonished. You want us to do it, but you won't do it in your town. And it kind of threw me off. And then fast forward to about a month ago, when the individuals came and proposed that the city take action on Gaza. I offered them 3 options that they could have to go forward, including bringing it to the county, because they wanted Keene to speak on behalf of Cheshire County, and I think maybe Cheshire County should speak on behalf of Cheshire County. Another one was to bring it to the Human Rights Committee. And a third one was, again, bring it to your town councils, because we had one individual who was from Swansea, although she claimed to be from Keene. We had another individual who was from Surrey who spoke. I've been really disappointed to see that of the 3 options I gave them, they have not taken advantage of any of them, which leads me to believe that maybe this wasn't as sincere of an effort as I thought. So at this point, it's just becoming clear to me that the city is being taken advantage of to do outreach and advocacy on behalf of others who do not want to do it themselves. And I do want to address one more thing. There's been some claims that I proposed a resolution after the Ukraine war. I did no such thing. The minutes do not reflect that. There is no resolution from 2022, 2023, or 2024 on the Ukraine war. So that did not happen. So I'll end with that.
Thank you. Yes, I think that hearing some of the misinformation that is spread, because we do not have a policy that we can refer back to, has been difficult for me. I think I recall the effort that the community put into the Ukraine response, and that the city stayed neutral, and that I believe even when they lit the square that we did not light City Hall. We chose to stay neutral, and so to hear people accusing us of taking a position on one topic and not another was frustrating for me, and I didn't have something that I could go back to point to say, like, our rule does not, would prevent us from doing this. We would have had to suspend a rule to make this happen for you. I feel more confident going into it with some sort of rule in place. I'm glad that we're addressing it at this point. Councilor House?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I fully agree with this amendment, and I also like that we've established a process by which 6 councilors can call for a special meeting should they wish to take an issue up. But so there's always a backup plan of how things could be worked through. But to have a screening of it up front, that it doesn't come to the floor right away, I think that's perfect.
Councilor Jones?
Well, thank you for including this. I have been asking for this, and I totally agree with it. I like what Andrew had to say. He gave some good reasons, but there are also some other reasons that go with that. From a business perspective, the cost. If you put a value on our city attorney and our department heads and our city manager, there's always a cost involved in putting these resolutions together. And I think we owe it to the taxpayers that we find ways to reduce that cost, and this is a way of going about it. So thank you.
Counselor Williams?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, anyone, Mayor Khan, going to the public.
Jay Kahn. I'd like the city attorney to just address the potential that there could be a motion to suspend this rule should members of the council see a communication and wish to take that communication up. If you could address that, I think that might add some clarity to how this how issues might be considered in the future.
Oh, yes, Mayor. That's the reason for the provided however clause at the very end of this. There are two reasons for that provided however clause. One of them is that, you know, this is a decision that would be made through the city clerk and during the submission of the communications, the mayor, the city manager during the agenda review possibly. But the point is that by putting it into the council boxes, it gives each individual member of the council an opportunity to decide whether they want to do exactly that, to bring it before the council for discussion. It was sort of a safety valve with respect to that.
Great. Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none, I would ask for a motion.
I'll just add before the motion, if I may.
Yes.
I do appreciate the provided however part. I think it's important that counselors know that citizens are concerned about these issues so that we can then advise them on how to move forward, or we can on our own prerogative approach, national leaders, state leaders, or provide information on how to reach constituent services. Or if a counselor really felt it needed to be brought forward, then a counselor could bring it forward. So I'm happy that provision is in there. And that being said, I will move to recommend that the city attorney be directed to introduce Amendment 4 regarding Section 25 communications to the Rules of Order for first reading as discussed.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Madison, second by Counselor Haas. Any questions on that motion? Counselor Jones, are you all caught up? I see you doing some technology swapping here.
Yeah, one's my technical expert, I'm fine.
Okay. Starting with Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Haas?
Yes.
It's a yes for me. Counselor Jones?
Yes.
Counselor Williams?
Yes.
And that one is unanimous. I was not expecting us to get this far tonight. All right. Number 5, report by committee. So this is the one that was housekeeping items from the clerk. Do you want to just give me a quick once-over one more time, Patty?
So our current rules do provide an opportunity at the close of a public hearing for oral comments. There is an opportunity for the public to submit written comments up until the agenda cut off for the following committee week. And there's always been some sort of confusion as to whether when a member of the public submits a communication to the committee after the public hearing, does that give that petitioner, that member of the public, the opportunity to speak? Our practice has been no, but this would codify that.
Okay. Do we have any conversation regarding this particular rule change? Counselor Jones.
Yeah, I like the fact that this clears it up, because otherwise it's just treated as another communication. And this does give us clarity. Years ago, we didn't have this in our rules. It used to be the state law regarding zoning laws. You couldn't have after a public hearing. And we as a council chose to do this with all of our public hearings. And this gives it clarity, so thank you.
Anyone from the public? All right, seeing none, I would ask for a motion.
Move to recommend that the city attorney be directed to introduce Amendment 5 regarding Section 32, report by committee, to the Rules of Order for first reading as discussed.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Madison, second by Counselor Jones. Any questions on the motion? Starting with Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Haas.
Yes.
Yes for me. Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Williams.
Yes.
All right, and that one is also unanimous. Last item of business on the Rules of Order is Amendment Number 6, resubmissions of items previously considered. So we have a strike through in the title of this one, and we have some additional language that, City Clerk, do you want to go over this one again for us?
Well, the concept is that after a vote is occurred by the council, that the reconsideration, the resubmission of the same item is through the reconsideration process. And it eliminates this past language that if the petitioner or anyone, a member of the public, introduce some new material that might persuade the council to take a different position, that would open up the door to introducing the topic again beyond reconsideration. So this is removing that and saying, you go through the reconsideration, but again, it gives that sort of caveat that, yes, you could suspend this, but it does require a motion to suspend. It does require me to give you notice that we did receive a communication and it's not going forward, so that you have that opportunity to realize that.
And it looks like it also encompasses the item as informational, as additional language, so that once if we have accepted something as informational, we then will hold that topic again till the next calendar year.
Very good point, Counselor, yes.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments from the committee on this one?
No, I think this is a good one, and thank you for changing the title. I think that makes it more clear too, just by changing one word. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Haas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since we're operating on the calendar year, can't that make for a very busy holiday season where something gets introduced in January and then gets introduced again introduced in December and then gets introduced again in January? Might wording be appropriate to put calendar year and/or and minimum 4 months between introductions or something like that? I'm not sure. I'm sure you have reasons for calendar year, but perhaps we could spread it out so we don't get clogged up in December and January.
City Attorney?
Yeah, a couple of comments on that. I have to tell you again, this is language that was already in the rules. Patty and I haven't specifically discussed this time period or the city manager or the mayor, frankly. But I do have to scratch my head a little bit and think, if you've already taken up a matter of business and you have disposed of it, why does the time period actually matter? I suppose that if there's a material change of some kind, you would want to consider that. But I think that's a valid question to chat, to think about, to talk about a little bit. Does during the calendar year really make sense if you're just going to push something off into the next calendar year? Same item. That's a conversation you should have.
So I hear what you're saying, City Attorney, and I see the point. I somewhat see the point for it. So I think that there are several items that, especially this committee hears, where we're creating an ordinance and we say all of the time, these can always be changed. And we say that for a reason, because sometimes we want to see the effectiveness. And I'll use the social host ordinance as an example. We created, I think that there were some attempts to make that ordinance happen that were not successful. And we finally were able to create a version that went through. And there was some hesitation, and we said, let's give it a year and make sure this happens, and then we can revisit it. So that there should be some capability of revisiting things after a certain period of time. But I think what Councilor Haas is saying, and what I've identified as problematic in the past, is, and I'm going to use another example before this committee, 5G. So we had lots of 5G conversations. It seemed to be the reoccurring penny that kept showing up. And those conversations would happen in November and then again in January because this says calendar year. And so I think maybe that needs to be replaced with some period of time versus an association with a calendar year. It would make more sense to me. Does anyone else have an opinion? Counselor Jones, you've lived through this longer than I have.
Yeah, I think calendar years, because usually that's when new counselors start and things can be different. I think that was the reason. I mean, this has been there since I've been here. I don't know the reason for it, but it's always worked. There's never been people rushing in January there's never been an overwhelming way to jump at reconsidering everything in January. I've never seen that. The 5G is the first thing I remember.
Yeah, it's the only thing that in my tenure that I've seen that happen, but it did occur. Counselor Williams, do you have anything to add on this one?
Just to say, Phil Jones is a smart guy. He says it's always worked. I think that's good enough for me.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have to state that, I love the wisdom of the group, because I think your point is well taken, and so is Councilor Jones's. It is an axiom that one city council can't necessarily bind another city council except in certain narrow circumstances. So I withdraw my comments with respect to the calendar year issue. You should leave it there.
Look at us making progress after 8 p.m. Okay, any further comments from the committee on this one? Anyone from the public? Yes, Councilor Powell, please.
Jacob Favalis, Main Street. Want to be mindful of the committee's time, but also want to make sure that I'm
No,
registering the opinions here. A challenge that I see with this is this idea that, the way that this can come back again is just through the reconsideration process. That gives in most cases, a 14-day or maybe a 21-day, depending on how the weeks in a month fall, window for new information that might change the council's mind to emerge. And I understand, we can suspend this rule and suspend that rule. I am cautious of kind of setting up a system. I'm not saying that we're necessarily all the time going to be getting new information on every single thing that comes through and suspending the rules all the time. But if we do too much of this rule can always be suspended, are we pushing into making a suspension of the rules, which to me should happen in very limited extenuating circumstances, a little bit more normalized. So I am going to have to work through before this comes back for final vote how I feel about this, because I agree that I don't want this to be abused, right, as a common theme with some of the rules we're talking about tonight. At the same time, I can absolutely imagine scenarios in which new information that could change the council's disposition towards something emerges, and just on that 15th day or beyond. So that's a note of caution.
So Attorney Mullins, can I ask you a question? Because I've always been under the impression that the mayor has the ability to put things back on the council. Is that correct? On the agenda?
Yes, the mayor under the charter has the authority to place any matter on for reconsideration, but it's still restricted to the next meeting of the city council. But the reason for that authority is because he doesn't get to vote, or she doesn't get to vote, depending upon the mayor. They don't, for a reconsideration, generally you have to be on the prevailing side. Well, you do have to be on the prevailing side to request a reconsideration. So, but the mayor does have that authority under the charter.
City manager.
So this is one I would like to weigh in on, because I have seen in my time here people who do not like the answer that they have been given want to come back and try and get a different answer. And there's a lot of effort and time that's put into researching something, providing recommendations to the committee, people coming to the committee meeting and, giving their opinions, and then we feel the item is disposed of, but because someone's unhappy, they immediately want to come back and rehash it all over again. So I think that's the challenging part, and unless they really do have something new that's compelling enough city councilors to bring it back again, it really shouldn't be something that automatically happens.
I tend to agree. I mean, I think that some of the conversations that we've had have been, that were had close to the end of the year and then again at the next year were used as political. There were political motivations behind why those conversations were had, and so it was painful to watch the process unfold in that way, and I do like that we have to create some space and some capacity to live with the decisions that we make, even though they are potentially temporary, but there is some, we do have to sit with them and own them. Yes.
Jacob Havley's 229 Main Street. Maybe a question for the city attorney here, but I understand the mayor to have broad authority to assign communications to a committee or accept them as informational. And so I think that there's perhaps a way for the city manager's concern to be addressed by the manager choosing to accept it as informational. And if the matter has been disposed of, it would require at least some councilors changing their mind to want to appeal that decision and have it assigned to a committee. So I don't necessarily see this as the only way to address the city manager's concern.
I agree with you. It is not the only way, but I think it's the most effective way to deter that behavior from happening. City Attorney, did you want to weigh in, or are you comfortable with that answer?
Well, with all due respect to Councilor Favalise's point, just a couple of tune-ups on that. I mean, we do have, each committee does have an area of jurisdiction, so communications kind of fall into those areas. As you all know, there are times when Patty has to throw the chicken bones because sometimes it's not entirely clear, or there could be some choice in that matter. But I think that if you're going to do something like this, you really need to have it specified with respect to your rule. It's like the same problem we ran into earlier about not allowing public communications or conversation after the public hearing has happened at the committee meeting. That was sort of a matter of practice, but it wasn't clear. And I think that if you're going to do this with respect to these items once considered, you need to make it clear and not to depend upon looking at other portions in the places in the rules where you might be able to infer what you're trying to do.
Yes, I agree. And I think this also, if we want to use an example of the situation that occurred at our full council meeting when we did accept something as informational and that item was challenged and then it came immediately back. If we remove this language, we're going to see more of that by people not, wanting to wear down the council and use it as a platform for their protest. So I like that it's worded the way that it is. I think it's worked for us. I'm gonna lean back on Councilor Jones's history that calendar year statement has been effective. I like the association with the new council because I think a new council does bring a fresh perspective on a lot of things, and depending on the election year, you could have a significant number of changes to the council, and so things should be allowed to be brought back. So I'm ready to see a motion on this one. Councilor Haas?
Just one more point. It seems the only example you've had of difficulty with this was the 5G discussions. So,
Well, and the matter that was before council a month ago.
yeah, that one also.
So those were 2 in 8 months.
But the one that carried over the calendar year was the 5G. So anyway, the sense I get is that everybody's comfortable with it, city clerk's comfortable with it, city manager's comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. And like we've said tonight, we can change it again. There'll be another opportunity in 4 months to talk about this again. Okay, so I think I am ready for a motion.
Move to recommend that the city attorney be directed to introduce Amendment 6 regarding Section 33, resubmission of items previously considered to the Rules of Order for a first reading as discussed.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Madison, second by Counselor Jones. Any question on the motion? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote, starting with Counselor Madison.
Yes.
Counselor Haas.
Yes.
It's a yes for me. Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Okay, and that one is unanimous. We made it through all of them this evening. Nothing went back on more time, so our schedule is almost clear for our summer break here for PLD. We will have the casino item on more time, and we'll be addressing that when we get back in September. I believe our public hearing is coming up on those items. But otherwise, it's looking pretty good for PLD right now. I'm happy to send all of this back up to council. So thank you, everyone, for joining me and for making it through tonight with me. And it's 8:35, and we are adjourned.
Good night, thank you.